The cruelest thing my husband did that night wasn't bringing another woman. It was looking straight at me and acting as if I had already disappeared. The chandeliers above the Grand Meridian Ballroom burned like captured stars. Crystal, gold, white roses. Everything glittered. Everything except me. I stood beneath the marble archway with my invitation pressed between my fingers, listening to champagne glasses touch and strangers laugh beneath the soft music of a string quartet. My name was Claire Holloway. At least that was the name everyone here knew. For 3 years, I had been Grant Holloway's wife. Quiet, private, convenient. I had learned early that being married to the most feared man in Chicago meant understanding silence. Grant never explained where he went at midnight. I never asked why men lowered their voices when he entered a room. And he never asked why I sometimes received phone calls from London before sunrise. We had built our marriage on unanswered questions. I just never realized mine would cost me my dignity. I approached the seating chart. My eyes moved toward the head table. Grant Holloway, Walter Pembroke, Senator Caldwell, Vanessa Crane. I looked again. My name was gone. Mrs. Holloway? The event coordinator hurried toward me. Her face had lost its color. There seems to be a mistake. I smiled. Where would you like me to sit? Before she could answer, the ballroom changed. Not loudly. Power never needed to announce itself. Conversations softened. Men straightened their jackets. Security moved closer to the entrance. Then Grant walked in. Black tuxedo. Silver cufflinks. That cold expression I had once mistaken for strength. And beside him was Vanessa Crane. Her hand rested on his arm. Her body leaned toward him with the confidence of a woman who believed the room already belonged to her. Then I saw the necklace. Emeralds surrounded by diamonds. My grandmother's necklace. Grant had taken it from our safe 2 weeks earlier. He told me it needed restoration. Vanessa was wearing it. My chest tightened. Not because of the jewelry. Because Grant saw me. Across 200 people. Across 3 years of marriage. Our eyes met. For 1 second I waited. For guilt. For hesitation. For anything. He gave me nothing. Vanessa whispered into his ear. Grant smiled. Then they walked toward the head table together. I followed slowly. There was a place card in front of Vanessa's chair. Mrs. Grant Holloway. My fingers went cold. Vanessa noticed me. Oh. She smiled. You came. Grant lifted his whiskey. Claire. Just my name. As if I were an employee arriving late. I received an invitation, I said. Vanessa touched the necklace. Grant thought you wouldn't enjoy tonight. I looked at my husband. Did he? Grant's jaw tightened. Don't cause a scene. The words hurt more than I expected. I nodded. I wasn't planning to. Then I turned away. No tears. No shouting. No begging. I walked to the last table in the ballroom and sat beside strangers who didn't know they were watching a marriage end. My phone vibrated inside my purse. One message. From a number Grant had never seen. The Holloway accounts are ready. I stared at the screen. Another message appeared. Should we freeze them? Across the ballroom, my husband raised his glass while Vanessa wore my family's diamonds. I placed my thumb over the reply button. Then someone behind me whispered my maiden name. Claire Whitmore. The champagne glass in my hand stopped halfway to my lips. I turned. And one of the most powerful men in the room was already standing. Sometimes humiliation doesn't make you smaller. Sometimes it teaches you exactly how much of yourself you gave away. The man standing behind me was Walter Pembroke. I knew his face from financial magazines Grant left unopened on our kitchen counter. 72 years old. Chairman of Pembroke Capital. The kind of man senators called back. The kind of man Grant had spent 6 months trying to meet. And he was looking at me as if I were the most important person in the ballroom. Claire Whitmore, he repeated. My maiden name sounded strange here. Dangerous. I placed my champagne glass down. Mr. Pembroke. His eyebrows lifted. You remember me. I remember everyone who was kind to my father. Something softened in his expression. Then he extended his hand. Across the ballroom Grant was watching. Felt it before I looked. His attention had always been physical. Heavy. Cold. Possessive. Walter lowered his voice. I didn't know you were attending personally. Neither did my husband, apparently. Walter followed my gaze. He saw Vanessa, the necklace, my chair. His expression changed. I see. 2 words. Nothing more. Powerful men rarely needed explanations. Claire. Grant's voice came from behind me. I turned. He had crossed the ballroom alone. Vanessa remained near the head table, watching us. Grant looked at Walter. Mr. Pembroke. Grant Holloway. He offered his hand. Walter stared at it for 1 second too long before accepting. I know who you are. Grant smiled. The smile he used during negotiations. Controlled. Confident. Then you know I've been trying to arrange a meeting. Ido. Walter looked at me. I simply didn't realize I could have asked your wife. Silence. Grant's eyes moved to mine. What does that mean? Before I could answer, Vanessa appeared. Of course she did. Her perfume reached us first. Sweet. Expensive. Too much. Grant, darling. She slipped her hand through his arm. Then she looked at me. I hope you're comfortable back here. I smiled. Very. Her fingers touched my grandmother's necklace. Some women just fit better at certain tables. Walter's face hardened. Grant said nothing. That hurt. Not because I needed him to defend me, because once I believed he would. Vanessa leaned closer. You should be grateful Grant still lets you use his name. I looked at my husband. He heard her. Every word. Is this what you wanted? I asked. His jaw tightened. Claire. A simple question. This is business. He lowered his voice. Don't make it personal. I stared at him. 3 years. 3 birthdays he forgot. 2 Christmas dinners eaten alone. Countless nights waiting for a key in the door. And somehow I had still protected him. I smiled. You already did. Then another chair moved. The sound scraped across the marble floor. Walter Pembroke stood. A woman near the stage noticed. Eleanor Hayes, CEO of Hayes Atlantic. She looked at me, then stood too. A 3rd person rose, then a 4th. The room began changing. Whispers spread beneath the chandeliers. Grant looked around. For the first time that night, uncertainty entered his eyes. What is happening? I didn't answer. Walter buttoned his jacket. Then he turned toward me. Ms. Whitmore. His voice carried farther than necessary. It would be an honor if you joined us at the head table. Vanessa laughed nervously. There must be some misunderstanding. Walter looked at her. No, then his eyes returned to me. The misunderstanding, he said, was believing this gala could proceed without the woman whose approval we came here to receive. The music stopped. Grant went completely still. And one by one, the most powerful people in the ballroom began to stand. The first time an entire room stood for me, my husband finally understood that silence and weakness had never been the same thing. For several seconds nobody moved. The chandeliers hummed softly above us. A champagne glass touched marble somewhere behind me. Then another chair scraped backward. Eleanor Hayes stood. After her came Richard Ashford of Ashford Maritime. Then Nathaniel Brooks. Then Caroline Mercer. Names Grant had spoken about at dinner. People whose signatures he needed. People whose approval could open doors even his reputation could not force. One by one they rose. Not for Grant. For me. I could feel his stare against my face. Claire. His voice was quieter now. No command. No warning. Just confusion. I looked at him. What? Walter Pembroke offered me his arm. The presentation is about to begin. Vanessa laughed. A brittle sound. This is ridiculous. Nobody answered her. I walked toward the head table. The crowd separated. 10 minutes earlier I had crossed the same ballroom invisible. Now people whispered my maiden name. Whitmore. 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 Grant followed. I heard his footsteps behind me. Fast. Controlled. Angry. He caught my wrist near the stage. Who are you? The question hurt more than it should have. I looked down at his hand. He released me. I'm your wife. You know what I mean. Yes. I did. For 3 years Grant had known how I took my coffee. How I slept with the window open in winter. How I touched his shoulder when nightmares woke him. But he had never asked who my father was, or why powerful people returned my calls, or what I had given up when I married him. The lights dimmed. Walter stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen. The room quieted. Tonight, we were expected to announce the largest private redevelopment agreement in Chicago history. Applause. Grant straightened. This was his moment. I knew because I had spent 18 months making sure he reached it. Walter continued. The agreement involves 6 financial institutions, 4 infrastructure funds, and approximately $8 billion in committed capital. Vanessa moved closer to Grant. I watched her smile return. Then Walter looked at me. However, none of those commitments can proceed without final authorization from the principal voting representative of Whitmore Dominion Trust. The screen behind him changed. A silver crest appeared. My family's crest. The air left Grant's lungs. I heard it. Actually heard it. Walter extended his hand toward me. Miss Claire Whitmore. No one applauded at first. They were too shocked. Then Eleanor Hayes started. The room followed. I walked onto the stage. Every step felt heavier than the last. Not because I was afraid. Because Grant was watching me become someone he had never bothered to know. Walter handed me the microphone. I looked across the ballroom. At Vanessa wearing my grandmother's diamonds. At my husband standing beside her. At the empty chair where my name should have been. Good evening, I said. My voice didn't shake. My family believed power should never be measured by how many people fear you. Grant's face changed. I continued. It should be measured by how many lives survive your decisions. Silence. The screen changed again. A list of companies appeared. Construction firms. Shipping networks. Real estate holdings. Investment groups. Grant looked up. Then froze. At the top of the list, highlighted beneath the Whitmore Dominion portfolio, were 2 words. Holloway Consolidated. His empire. His legacy. The kingdom he believed belonged only to him. Walter leaned toward the microphone. Ms. Whitmore, he said, shall we proceed with the authorization? I looked directly at my husband, and for the first time since I had married Grant Holloway, he looked afraid of my answer. The most dangerous question a man can ask his wife is who she really is. After spending years proving he never cared enough to know. Grant found me behind the stage. The applause had ended. The ballroom had returned to whispers. But nothing felt the same. He closed the door. The music disappeared. Only the sound of his breathing remained. Whitmore Dominion. His voice was low. I removed my earrings slowly. What about it? You control it. I represent the controlling vote. His eyes narrowed. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need. Grant stepped closer. 3 years ago, that movement would have made me nervous. That night, it only made me tired. How long? Since my father died. Before we married? Yes. He stared at me. You let me believe you had nothing. I laughed once. Quietly. I never told you that. You lived in a small apartment. Because I liked it. You drove an old car. It worked. You wore dresses that cost less than Vanessa's shoes. I looked at him. And somehow you decided that meant I was worth less. His face hardened. That's not what I said. No, I placed my earrings inside my purse. You never had to say it. Silence filled the room. Grant turned away. His hands rested on his hips. I knew that posture. He used it when negotiations stopped going his way. How much of Holloway Consolidated do you control? Enough. How much? 38% through direct holdings. His shoulders stiffened. And the debt. Whitmore Dominion holds the senior position. He turned. For the first time, Grant Holloway looked at me without knowing what to do next. If you call the debt tonight, I could dismantle half your empire before breakfast. His jaw tightened. I stepped closer. But I haven't. Why? The question came too quickly. Too honestly. I looked at him. Because I believed in you. He said nothing. I watched you build something from nothing. I watched men underestimate you. I watched you protect people who had nowhere else to go. My throat tightened. And I thought there was still a man beneath all that power. Who remembered what it felt like to have none. Grant looked away. So you saved me. Twice. His eyes returned to mine. What? 7 years ago, when your shipping division nearly collapsed. His face changed. The anonymous lender. My father. And after he died? Me. Grant stepped backward. The truth had finally reached him. You should have told me. No, my voice stayed calm. You should have asked. His expression sharpened. What was I supposed to ask? Anything. I swallowed. Who I was before you. What I wanted. Why I never cared about your money. Why I stayed. He looked at me. Why did you stay? That one hurt. I smiled anyway. Because I wanted to know who you would become when you thought the woman beside you had nothing to offer except love. Grant went completely still. And now? I looked through the glass door. Vanessa stood across the ballroom. She was speaking to a man near the service corridor, passing him something small. A black flash drive. I recognized the man. So did every private intelligence report on my desk. Damien Cross. Grant's most dangerous rival. My phone vibrated. A message appeared. We have confirmation. Vanessa Crane has been selling Holloway financial records for 6 months. I stared at the screen. Grant stepped closer. What is it? I locked my phone. Then looked at the man who had humiliated me. The man whose empire I had already saved twice. And understood the cruelest part of love. Sometimes the person who breaks your heart is still standing inside the fire. And you are the only one who knows the building is burning. The hardest part wasn't discovering that my husband had been betrayed. It was realizing I still had enough love left to save him. I watched Vanessa cross the ballroom. She smiled at Grant's associates, touched shoulders, whispered into ears. Beautiful, elegant, poison hidden inside crystal. Damien Cross disappeared through the service corridor. My phone vibrated again. Transfer scheduled for 11:30 p.m. Holloway shipping access codes compromised. I checked the time. 11:17. 13 minutes. Grant stood beside me. What aren't you telling me? I looked at him. For one terrible second I wanted to walk away. Let him lose everything. Let Vanessa finish what she had started. Let Grant finally understand what it felt like to trust someone who had already chosen to betray you. Then I thought about the dock workers, the drivers, the secretaries, the families whose mortgages depended on Holloway paychecks. Grant's empire had his name, but thousands of innocent people lived inside it. This isn't about you anymore, I said. His expression hardened. What does that mean? It means Vanessa has been selling your financial records to Damien Cross. Grant went still. No, I showed him the message. His eyes moved across the screen. Once. Twice. Then something cold entered his face. I'll handle it. He turned. I grabbed his arm. No, his eyes dropped to my hand. Let go. If you walk across that ballroom angry, Cross wins. He touched my business. And Vanessa touched your pride. His jaw tightened. That makes you predictable. Grant stared at me. Nobody spoke to him that way. Not twice. I opened my phone. Cross scheduled a transfer for 11:30. He expects Vanessa's access codes to release the Holloway reserve accounts. How do you know? Because my people have been watching him for 6 months. Grant's eyes narrowed. You knew. I suspected. And you said nothing. I didn't have proof. You could have warned me. I almost laughed. Would you have believed your invisible wife over the woman wearing her necklace? That silenced him. 11:21. 9 minutes. I called Walter. Delay the authorization vote. For how long? 10 minutes. Done. I called my security director. Redirect every Holloway transfer request through Whitmore clearance. A pause. Even Mr. Holloway's? I looked at Grant. Especially his. Grant stepped closer. You're locking me out of my own company. I'm keeping you from destroying it. 11:24. 6 minutes. Across the ballroom, Vanessa checked her phone. Her smile disappeared. She looked toward Grant. Then toward me. She knew. I walked back into the ballroom. Grant followed. Vanessa met us near the staircase. Grant. Her voice shook. There's something wrong with the accounts. He stared at her. How would you know? Her face changed. Just slightly. Enough. Grant saw it. I saw something break behind his eyes. Vanessa stepped backward. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Grant moved toward her. I stepped between them. Not here. She betrayed me. So did you. He froze. The words landed harder than I expected. I lowered my voice. Tonight, you learn the difference between revenge and justice. My phone vibrated. 11:30. Transfer blocked. Holloway assets secured. Damien Cross accounts flagged. I closed my eyes. For 1 second. Just one. Then Walter approached. Claire. I turned. The board is waiting. Grant looked at me. What happens now? I studied the man who had humiliated me. The husband I had just saved. Again. That depends on what you do next. Then Walter handed me a second phone. A video was playing. Vanessa. A private meeting. Damien Cross. And Grant's access codes changing hands. Grant watched in silence. When the video ended, his face was empty. Not angry. Not powerful. Broken. He looked at me. You saved everything. I shook my head. No, behind us, hundreds of guests waited. Investors. Employees. Enemies. Witnesses. I turned toward the stage. I saved the people who would have fallen with you. And as I walked away, I realized something Grant Holloway still didn't understand. I had protected his empire for the third time. But I was no longer sure I wanted to protect our marriage. A powerful man can survive betrayal. What he cannot survive is discovering that the woman he humiliated is the only person standing between him and becoming the monster everyone feared. Grant watched the video twice. Vanessa. Damien Cross. The access codes. The betrayal. When the screen went dark, he handed the phone back to Walter. Where is she? His voice had changed. I recognized that voice. Cold. Controlled. The voice men heard before they disappeared from Grant's world. Grant. He looked at me. Stay out of this. I stepped closer. No, she sold my company. She tried. She betrayed me. I almost smiled. The irony was cruel. And what did you do to me? His eyes hardened. This is different. Only because you're the one who got hurt. Silence. The ballroom waited around us. Hundreds of people pretending not to listen. Grant turned toward the staircase. Vanessa stood near the exit. 2 security guards had stopped her. Her face was pale. Bring her here. The guards moved. I raised my hand. No, everyone froze. Even Grant. He stared at me. You don't give orders to my men. I just did. His jaw tightened. Claire. Let her leave. Vanessa looked at me. Confused. Grant laughed once. There was no humor in it. She steals from me, sells information to Cross, helps him nearly destroy thousands of lives, and you want me to let her walk away? No, I took the microphone from Walter. I want everyone to see what happens next. The ballroom went silent. I stepped onto the stage. The lights felt hot against my face. Grant followed. Claire. I turned toward the guests. Tonight, evidence was discovered that confidential financial information belonging to Holloway Consolidated was illegally transferred to an outside party. Whispers spread. Vanessa shook her head. She's lying. I looked at Walter. He nodded. The screen behind me changed. Transfer records. Security footage. Messages. Dates. Names. Vanessa's face disappeared beneath the truth. Grant moved toward her. I stepped between them. Again. His voice dropped. Move. No. She deserves consequences. Yes. I looked into his eyes. But consequences are not the same as revenge. His hands curled into fists. You think you can teach me how to handle betrayal? No, I lowered my voice. I think someone has to teach you what power is for. That stopped him. I pointed toward the screen. The evidence goes to federal investigators. Grant stared at me. You're giving this to authorities? I'm giving it to people whose job is to decide punishment. She came after my family. I swallowed. So did you. The words broke something. Not in him. In me. Grant looked at the floor. Then he turned toward the room. For the first time since I had known him, Grant Holloway looked uncertain without being angry. He took the microphone. My wife deserved better tonight. Nobody moved. Grant continued. I brought another woman into this room. His voice tightened. I allowed her to wear something that belonged to Claire's family. Vanessa stared at him. I treated my wife like someone whose dignity depended on my permission. He looked at me. It didn't. My chest hurt, because part of me had waited 3 years to hear him understand, and now it was too late. I'm sorry. The words were quiet, public, real. I removed my wedding ring. Grant stopped breathing. I placed it on the podium. An apology doesn't rebuild respect. Claire, I saved your company tonight. He stepped toward me. I know, but I can't keep saving a marriage you were willing to destroy. His face changed. I walked past him, down the stage, through the ballroom. Nobody stopped me. At the doors, Grant called my name. I turned once. He stood beneath the chandeliers. No guards around him. No mistress beside him. No command left in his voice. Just a man watching his wife leave. And for the first time in Grant Holloway's life, the most powerful thing he could do was nothing. I opened the doors. Cold night air touched my face. Behind me, the Mafia King remained inside his kingdom. Alone. Losing me did not change Grant Holloway. Living with the man he had been when I left did. For 6 weeks, I heard nothing from my husband. No calls. No flowers. No men waiting outside my apartment. That surprised me. Grant had never understood how to lose something quietly. He bought companies that rejected him, destroyed alliances that betrayed him, made powerful men regret saying no. But he let me leave. I moved into my father's old apartment overlooking Lake Michigan. The room smelled like cedar and dust. I slept badly, worked too much, and every morning, I woke with my left hand reaching toward a space that was no longer there. I hated that. Missing someone does not mean you should return to them. Sometimes it only means the wound remembers where it came from. Then Walter called. You should see this. He sent me a folder. Holloway shipping. 7 years earlier. Payroll records. Medical benefits. Pension accounts. I opened the first document. Then the second. Then I stopped breathing. Grant had almost closed the South Harbor terminal during his financial collapse. 800 families would have lost everything. My father's anonymous loan saved it. But there was something I had never known. Grant had refused to cut employee pensions, even when doing so would have saved him millions. I kept reading. 3 years ago, a warehouse fire. Grant personally paid the families of every injured worker. No publicity. No tax benefit. No press. I stared at the screen. The man I married had not been imaginary. He had simply buried himself beneath power. Another document appeared. Grant had sold 2 private properties, then 3 luxury vehicles, then a controlling interest in one of his casinos. The money went into a restitution fund for families harmed by businesses connected to his organization. I called Walter. Why are you showing me this? Because he isn't. That silenced me. What does that mean? Grant refused to let anyone contact you. I looked toward the lake. He said if the changes were only meant to bring you back, then they weren't changes. My throat tightened. I hated Walter for telling me, because hope is dangerous when you have finally learned to live without it. 2 months later, Holloway Consolidated announced the closure of its most profitable underground operations. Men Grant had trusted for 20 years walked away. Some threatened him. Some called him weak. Grant let them. He sold assets, paid debts, created legal employment programs for families who had depended on his old network. He was dismantling parts of the kingdom he had spent his life building. Not because I asked, because I was gone. One rainy evening, I found an envelope beneath my door. No guards. No messenger. Just my name. Inside was a photograph. Grant and I. Our first year of marriage. I was laughing. He was looking at me. Not at the camera. At me. Behind the photograph was a note. I expected an apology. A request. Promise. There were only 7 words. You were right to walk away, Claire. I sat on the floor. The rain touched the windows. For the first time since the gala I cried. Not because I wanted him back. Because Grant Holloway had finally done something I never believed he could do. He had accepted a consequence he could not control. 6 months passed. Winter became spring. Then Walter invited me to visit the South Harbor terminal. I almost refused. But I went. The old warehouses were gone. In their place stood a training center, a childcare facility, a medical clinic. Families walked through open doors. Children laughed where armed men once stood. I stopped beneath a steel sign, the Holloway Whitmore Community Foundation. My chest tightened. He didn't use your name without permission. Walter stood behind me. He transferred ownership to the workers. I turned. Where is Grant? Walter looked across the courtyard. I followed his gaze. A man was carrying boxes from a delivery truck. No bodyguards. No black car. No taller suit. Grant. He looked thinner. Older. Human. Then he saw me. The box slipped slightly in his hands. Neither of us moved. 6 months of silence stood between us. Grant set the box down. He did not walk toward me. He did not ask me to stay. He only looked at me and said the one thing the Mafia King I married would never have been strong enough to say. I didn't know if I deserved to see you again. The man standing in front of me was not the husband I had left. That frightened me more than if he had never changed at all. Grant did not move toward me. Neither did I. Children laughed somewhere behind the training center. A forklift beeped near the loading dock. Ordinary sounds. I had never imagined Grant Holloway inside an ordinary life. You look different, I said. He glanced down at his work jacket. I own fewer suits. That isn't what I meant. I know. Silence settled between us. 6 months ago, Grant would have filled it. With commands, questions, promises. Now he waited. I saw the foundation records, I said. His expression changed. Walter shouldn't have shown you. Why? Because I didn't do any of this for you. The words hurt. Then he continued. I started because of you. He looked toward the clinic. But if I had only changed to get you back, I would still be the same man. Just better at pretending. I swallowed. Grant had never understood humility. Now he spoke it quietly. Without asking to be rewarded. You sold the casinos. Yes. The warehouses. Yes. 3 houses. I only slept in one. Despite myself, I smiled. Grant noticed. He did not smile back. That made it harder. I'm sorry, he said. You already apologized. Not for everything. He looked at me. I'm sorry I made you feel invisible. My chest tightened. I'm sorry I accepted your loyalty as if it were something I had earned. The wind moved between us. I'm sorry I thought providing for you was the same as knowing you. I looked away. Grant, you don't have to forgive me. That stopped me. The old Grant would have demanded an answer. The old Grant believed love was another negotiation. What do you want from me? I asked. Nothing. I almost laughed. I don't believe you. You shouldn't. He nodded. Not yet. The honesty hurt more than promises would have. He reached into his jacket. For 1 second, my body remembered the man he had been. Then he pulled out my wedding ring. I kept it. I stared at the small circle of gold. I thought about bringing it to you. Why didn't you? Because returning it would have been another way of asking you to come back. He closed his hand. And I haven't earned the right to ask. My eyes burned. I hated that I could still love him. I hated that love could survive disappointment. But love surviving did not mean trust had. I don't know you anymore, I whispered. Grant nodded. That may be the first good thing I've heard today. I looked at him. Why? Because the man you knew deserved to be left. He stepped backward. Not closer. Backward. Giving me space. I have a meeting with the workers. He looked toward the building. You can stay. A pause. Or leave. Another pause. I won't stop you either way. Then he walked away. No command. No bodyguard. No expectation that I would follow. I watched him enter the training center. 20 minutes later, I was still standing there. Then Walter appeared beside me. You're waiting for him. No, Walter smiled. You're terrible at lying. I looked through the glass. Grant sat at a long table with dock workers. Listening. Actually listening. What happens now? Walter asked. I shook my head. I don't know. And for once that did not frighten me. Because forgiveness is not forgetting what someone did. It is watching what they do when forgiveness is no longer guaranteed. I turned to leave. Then my phone vibrated. A new message. From Grant. The foundation gala is next month. No pressure. No expectations. I stared at the screen. A second message appeared. If you come, I'll be there alone. I looked through the glass again. Grant was still listening to the workers. He had not looked toward me once. And I realized the man I had spent years waiting to see might finally exist. The only question was whether he had arrived too late. The first time Grant brought another woman to a gala, he wanted the world to see his power. The second time he came alone. 1 year after I walked out of the Grand Meridian Ballroom, I stood beneath the same marble archway, same chandeliers, same white roses, same music floating beneath conversations that stopped when I entered. But I was not the same woman. People stood. Not all at once. Slowly. Walter first. Then Eleanor. Then the investors. The workers from South Harbor. Families whose names had never appeared on financial reports. I smiled. Not because they recognized my power. Because this time I understood it. I walked into the ballroom alone. Then I saw Grant. He stood near the center of the room. No security surrounding him. No woman on his arm. No whiskey in his hand. Just a black suit. A silver watch. And the wedding ring I had left on the podium 1 year earlier hanging from a thin chain beneath his collar. He did not come toward me. He waited. That mattered. I crossed the ballroom. Every step brought back a memory. Vanessa wearing my grandmother's diamonds. My missing chair. Grant telling me not to cause a scene. The sound of powerful people standing. The sound of my wedding ring touching wood. I stopped in front of him. You came alone. Grant nodded. I said I would. You used to make entrances. I used to need people watching. And now. His eyes stayed on mine. Now I care who is still there when the room is empty. My chest tightened. Grant looked around the ballroom. Last year, I brought another woman here because I wanted everyone to see how powerful I was. The room became quiet. He was speaking loudly enough for them to hear. I humiliated my wife because I believed love would tolerate whatever power demanded. Nobody moved. Grant looked at me. I was wrong. I swallowed. You've said that before. Yes. He stepped back. Not closer. I'm not asking you to forgive me tonight. Then why invite me? Because the first time you entered this room, I made you feel invisible. His voice broke slightly. Tonight, I wanted the world to see the woman I was too blind to recognize. Silence. Then Grant reached beneath his collar. He removed the chain. My wedding ring rested in his palm. He held it out. I looked at it. Then at him. I'm not ready to wear that again. I know. His fingers closed around the ring. No anger. No disappointment. Just acceptance. I may never be ready. I know that too. I studied him. Then what happens now? Grant looked toward the doors. Whatever you choose. The old Grant would have told me what came next. The man standing before me waited. So I extended my hand. His eyes dropped to it. Hope appeared there. Dangerous. Quiet. Human. This is not forgiveness, I said. I understand. This is not a promise. I understand. I took his hand. Then start by walking beside me. Grant nodded. We moved through the ballroom. Together. Not husband and wife. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But he did not walk ahead of me. And I did not follow behind him. For the first time we walked side by side. The chandeliers burned above us. People watched. But none of that mattered anymore. Because power can make people fear losing you. Money can make them stay. Love can make them forgive things they should not. But character is different. Character is what remains when no one owes you another chance. Grant Holloway once ruled a city by making people afraid to leave him. I taught him that love begins only when you become someone worth choosing. And he taught me something too. Walking away was not the end of our story. It was the moment both of us finally learned how to stand.